We are live.
The meeting of the Committee of the Whole Planning Administration is now called to order and ask you to rise if you're able for a reading of the invocation, please. As we come together today, we recognize the great responsibilities laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness where freedom prevails and where justice rules. We acknowledge the rich history of this land, which includes the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Today, there are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who live or work in the city. The intent of this acknowledgement is to recognize our responsibilities to use and take care of these lands responsibly and respectfully, while remembering the generations past and considering the generations yet to come. We respect and seek to continue and promote a long-standing relationship with the area's First Nations, Six Nations of the Grand River Nation, and the Mississauga of the Credit First Nations, and the Indigenous peoples who reside within the city of Brantford. Let us also not forget those who serve our community and who are no longer with us, so that we continue to do the work we must in their stead. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, has the roll call been taken?
Through the chair, roll call has been taken.
Members of the committee, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest appearing for us tonight? I see none. Separations. Members committee separations of items. Oh, seeing none. Rose, Councilor Willie, sorry.
Yes, I'd like to separate 7.1.6 city operated medical clinic.
Okay, thank you. And 7.2.1 is already separated. We have a delegation. And I think we have another one separated, do we not? Oh, the resolution is separated. Any other separation items? Councilor Tamwell.
7.2.2. Downtown Brantford Priority Plan.
Yep, okay, I've got that separated. Okay. Any other items for separation? Seeing none. Okay. Councilman Tilburg, can you please move the motion to approve all items for consideration in consent 7.172, not separated for discussion? Oh, Van Tilburg, not online, so Councilor Samuel, can you do that?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Curry that all items for consideration and consent, not separated for discussion purposes, be approved. Thank you.
Okay. Clerk, read the titles and then we'll proceed to the vote.
Through the chair, the items subject to the vote are 711 Waterworks Park parking lot additional funding. 712 Provincial Offences Corp Services POA Accommodations Project Update. 713 Administrative Penalty System. 714 Adaptive Reuse Incentives for Designated Heritage Properties using the Downtown and Greyfield Community Improvement Plans. 715 Proposed Amendments to Heritage Designation Bylaw 15381 for 34 Middleville Drive. And 723 the minutes. Items not separated for discussion carried in our recorded vote of 10-0. Those councillors voting in favor: Councillors Ventilbor, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, McCurry, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Cipolli, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And there are no statutory public hearings, no public meetings on the agenda. We do have delegations. For hearing the delegations, I would like to remind those in the meeting today that the following rules of decorum are set forth in the city's procedural bylaw. They apply today. No person shall display any sign, banner, or placard in the meeting room other than materials that, in the opinion of this chair, are legitimate audio-visual aids necessary in connection with any presentation to be made to council. All persons present shall use polite, respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or making any gestures that is disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only in the subject in the debate and shall not speak on any other subject. No person shall applaud participants in debate or engage in conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of this meeting. Thank you. First, under 6.1, speaking to 6.11, I now ask Sandra Voss and Scott Elliott from the Family Physicians Recruitment Task Force to come forward and speak to item 7.2.1, Community Physician Recruitment Program 2024-2025, the action plan. You have 10 minutes inclusive of questions.
That's red. Can you hear me? I have a
Yep.
red light.
You got a red light? Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to council. I'm Sandra Voss, the Family Physician Task Force Chair, and I'm here to address the report that we sent into the council for funding. Our ask is for $145,000 for the 2025 year. In the report that we submitted to council, we have summarized our stats for the year to date. We've been successful in generating leads, meeting with potential candidates, and securing 3 new replacements and 4 locum family physicians in the community. The surgical assistants, the hospitalist, and 1 emerge physician were also recruited for a total of 9 positions to date for 2024. The increases in our hospital, and even though they're not out in the community, this helps with the burden of patients who use emergency departments as a family physician. The increase in the budget from $110,000 to $145,000, which we were granted for 2024, has provided more funds for the recruitment activities and small incentives for any potential candidates that we can convince to come and set up shop. Despite extensive time spent by our staff via conferences, site visits, and multiple communication, family medicine graduates are not choosing Brantford to practice family medicine in the community. The environment has drastically changed over the years the task force has been involved as to what medical graduates are choosing as post-graduating specialties. There are many reasons why they are hesitant to settle on permanent locations to practice as a family physician in the community. Our task force recognizes that we cannot compete with other regions that are offering tens of thousands of dollars in cash and other incentives. Therefore, after great deliberation, we believe it is time for the task force to end in December 2025. We will continue to work diligently to pursue the candidates that are contacting us now and assist in any way we can with their relocation within our budget limits. This request for $145,000 will provide the resources to continue to do so into the next year. We have recognized that we need to modernize how things are done and learn how to adapt and adopt practices that are benefit to our growing community. Our Brantford Brant Norfolk Ontario Health Team is in the process of being developed to examine the whole issue of human resources required for future primary care in our area. We appreciate Councillor McCurry's resolution to have city staff report on the feasibility of a medical clinic as one way to attract doctors to our area. Thank you for the funding for over 20 years to our task force. And we ask that you consider funding us for 1 more year. Dr. Scott Elliott or I would be pleased to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Voss. I do have a list of questions. I have Councilor McCurry and then Councilor Colley. Councilor McCurry, you have the floor.
Chair, thank you very much. Welcome, folks. Thank you for coming tonight. And thanks for the work that this committee's done for, gosh, the past number of years. It's not easy competing with other communities, as I'm sure you could attest to. As you mentioned, Sandra, we do have a 7.1.6 on the agenda tonight, the medical clinic. And we've had some discussion here this evening about further work in that respect. And I believe Councillor Sokoli is going to have an amendment that will speak to having the committee continue to be involved in that type of work. And that's something that you can buy into tonight, is it?
Yeah. From my perspective, Councillor McCurry, the answer would be yes. Yeah. Is it working? Okay, sorry. Thank you, Councillor McCurry. My answer would be yes, and let me expand upon that just a little bit if I could, please. What we have recognized in recruitment of family doctors in particular, or primary care providers, as we prefer to call them, that includes nurse practitioners, is they are all interested upon graduation of being involved in family health teams. FHT. So we have one in Paris, we have one in Simcoe that you may be aware of. And what they provide is interprofessional care. Interprofessional care is how family docs are trained these days. So there's no more solo practitioner who hangs out a shingle and then see what happens from there. So if we look at a undertaking of a clinic that could provide
family health team environment with interprofessional care. And if we could fold into that the academic quotient, we would have close to an 80% retention rate, because that's what the numbers show us. That of the number that show up where they train, 80%, give or take, staying in the communities to where they're trained. And there is an opportunity before us now from McMaster with the expansion of medical school training in Metropolitan University as well as others for another 8 residents on top of the 6 that we currently have, on top of the 12 that we currently have. So that gives us an opportunity I think we really need to look at as a recruiting mechanism. Thank you.
Yeah, super. Thank you very much for that. And I'd be remiss, Mr. Chair, if I didn't mention that although this resolution has my name on it, this was the brainchild of Sandra Voss, and it was discussed at the committee. One of the ways to look at recruitment is perhaps what we've got before us tonight, which is to look at sort of a standalone clinic with maybe what was just mentioned as a component of it. So kudos to Chair Sandra for introducing that at the committee level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Councilor Sepulveda.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for coming out tonight to answer some questions that we may have. So last year we increased our funding to 110, and then the ask of this year was 145. Can you get 145,000 for 2020, right? Okay. Can you give us an indication of what we would expect more of, or why there would be an increase to that funding request? What more you would be doing with that?
Right. For 2023, we had 110,000, and this year we were able to get 145,000. So we have staffing cost. So we have a part-time person and a full-time person. And a lot of their time is tracking down contacts. So they go to conferences, we post online, we pay big bucks to do emails to graduating students. And it's that follow-up that we do to try to, and then bring them to town, show them around the clinics, and hope that they're interested in staying. Another big part of the expense is we run a very minimal website, and we switched to trying to find as many free Facebook professional groups that we can advertise on. But it's the conferences, it's the setup, it's the traveling to get there. We pay $8,000 a year to our Southern Ontario region of 8 other cities, because we can't afford to go to the UK. So we send one person on behalf of 8 regions, and that's where the bulk we're trying to target is the UK docs who want to move to Canada. But there's immigration, there's paperwork, we try to help with that. And we also try to, on a very small scale, acknowledge that the family physicians who are here in town and want to stay in town, we give them a tiny little gift. We give gifts to the graduating medical residents and saying thank you. It's an opportunity to encourage them to come and stay. But like most things in the world, yes, the bulk is the staff to do all the grunt work that the task force can't.
Okay, thank you for the explanation.
And I'll just say that we had, with that extra funds, we are trying to offer the ones who will move here a small $1,500 or $3,000 moving expense, which is nothing compared to what they have to pay when they're moving here. That's about the only perk we can offer.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here this evening. Just a question, I guess, like everything else, there's moving parts and things are changing. Is it safe to say, if I was right with this, that a physician, say 25 years ago, probably would have had a base of about 3,000 patients? And today's doctor probably looking at about 500, looking for more of that work-life balance, or looking to not be alone, but work as a team? Is that something that's pretty fair to say?
Right, just wait for the mic here. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I think 3,000 is a little bit on the generous side. It was probably more along the lines of 2,000, maybe 2,500, because I come from that era, and I can tell you 2,000 patients is a load and 3/4 is what it is. The new graduates are more in the 1,200 range is what it is, as opposed to 500. So I guess you could say to replace one of me, you're probably looking at a 2-to-1 ratio. In some cases, it may be a 3-to-1 ratio, but that would be very unusual. And again, we're back to how
The residents are trained in the interprofessional team care-based models that have a lot of supports around them that allow them to practice in that fashion. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I just think it's a major hurdle that we're trying to accomplish and that you folks are trying to help us with. So I just wanted the public to know that this isn't something that's very easy. And with the way things change, just it could become even harder 10 years from now as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Caputa. Radar 10 minutes. Radar 10 minutes. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. That's what, this is going to be coming up on the agenda very shortly. I just want to, I won't be remiss if I didn't thank Dr. Elliott for your involvement in the health team. It's making a big difference in our community. Thank you very much for that as well. Thank you. There'll be time for discussion, questions, and the agenda comes forward. Thank you. I'll now ask Chuck Beach to come forward and speak to item 8.2 Climate Ready Plan. It's a resolution application. We'll have 10 minutes. There's no question, Chuck.
Chuck Beach, 7 Springfield Drive, Brantford. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for listening to me tonight. Something's happening in the world. More frequent weather extremes, and they're happening all over the globe. So I'm going to share with you some of the news articles I've read this year. Mexico was about to experience its highest temperature ever recorded as the death toll climbs. Temperatures soared to nearly 50 degrees across India in an ongoing heat wave from May. The Balkans are hit by blackouts as the heat wave persists. June. Switzerland floods, 1 dead, and search continues for others. June. The river level in the Amazon rainforest port hits 122-year low, October. Hurricane Helen updates, death toll surpasses 230, October. Hurricane Milton, October. Nearly 1,000 people have been rescued. Spain hit by deadliest floods in decades, October. A dozen BC daily rainfall records fall as staggering atmospheric river pounds the south coast. I found this interesting. This is the rainiest year on record for Toronto by a lot. And it's my understanding that there's been some recent rain and drought figures presented by the GRCA that I'm sure the mayor would know about that are rather astounding. Waterloo region hits September driest in more than 50 years. And so I've shown you this chart before, actually, in the spring. 22 of the 23 hottest years on record have occurred since year 2002. And this year, they tell us it's going to add to the list. We'll now have 23 of the hottest 24 years. So I've shared with you, shared this with you before also, that this was an article in the Expositor. Report identifies Brantford as a climate change hotspot, one of the 10 hottest cities in Canada, actually. And that came out of this study by the University of Waterloo, the Impact Institute. So why is Brantford in the top 10? Hardscaping, the way we build in the past and the way we continue to build. Houses on postage stamp size lots, heat absorbing rooftops and asphalt, and our geographic situation, not near moderating waters of lakes, and our lack of trees. Our tree canopy is 21.5%. Should be more, certainly above 30. So climate change adaptation, I wanted to share with you what some other jurisdictions are doing because I think it's sort of unique. it's certainly interesting. France. They passed a law that says that if you have more than 80 parking spots in your facility, at your facility, you need to install these solar panels. Now, these solar panels not only generate electricity, but they also provide shade. You know, one of the things that we take into account when we talk about global warming, we always talk about the CO2 emissions, and that you know, the CO2 in the atmosphere is rising from about 200 in the glacial period to about 400 right now. And the energy from the sun comes down and that heats the CO2. What we don't talk about too much is the urban heat island effect. And that's the same sun coming down, only in this case, it's not heating the CO2, it's heating the asphalt. And it's heating dark surfaces, like roads. Recently, I was out with a couple of your senior city staffers, and we had a heat sensing gun, and there was a newly put down trail of dark asphalt, and we took the temperature, it was 45 degrees. We took the temperature of the road, it was 35 degrees. We took the temperature of the grass adjacent to it, and it was 25 degrees. That's the urban heat island effect. Right now, your climate lens that you have in place that was developed by Rochelle Romney does not account for the heat island effect at all. And it really should. This is Mohawk College, Fennel campus. Solar panels. There's over 200 parking spots covered currently. When we create a Walmart or another recently added massive establishment to our jurisdiction, such as Costco, we create gigantic heat islands, 45 degrees or more in the summer. There's things we can do. This is awesome. There are things we can do to offset this. This is Phoenix, Arizona. They paint the roads with reflective paint. This is a solution I don't like, but it's an end of pipe solution. New program run by BC Hydro will provide 800 free air conditioning units over the next 3 years. And that's because of the heat dome that affected them, that killed more than 600 people. Montreal, growing wave of cities banning natural gas, starting in October of this year. Gas-powered systems are prohibited in buildings up to 3 stories high, and includes furnaces and stoves. In 2009, the city of Toronto passed a bylaw that I won't say encourage, it's to force large commercial institutions to have a green roof. And today over 700 green roofs exist in the city of Toronto. You know, as much as I count on you for the economic prosperity in this community, I also count on you to have a sustainable environment. I know your portfolio is large, but climate change is a reality. Please consider future generations having an adoption plan. And this is why I'm here tonight, because I understand that on the floor there's an opportunity to apply for funding that would end up giving you more funding. So I urge you to embrace this and do more as much as you can. I have an article, and it's from the UN commissioned a study on the economic well-being of the planet. And what they said was, public attention has recently been focused as never before on global warming, stratospheric ozone depletion, pollution of the oceans, destruction of tropical forests, and environmental threats. This report was called Our Common Future. And it's the first time we ever heard the expression sustainable development. It's also called the Brundtland Report, 1986. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Beach. I'll see if we got any questions, comments. Seeing none, we'll be dealing with this item very shortly. Thank you. Actually, we'll be dealing with it next. Okay. Okay, prior to putting this item, we're gonna deal with, this resolution first. So Councilor Sullivan, please move your resolution and state your seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, this is actually Councilor Martin's resolution. I'll be reading it for him, and Councilor McCurry will be seconding it. So just waiting for it to come up on the screen. There we go. Whereas the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, has made funding available through the Local Leadership for Climate Adaptation Initiative. And whereas the city of Brantford and its infrastructure are at risk of various climate hazards such as flooding, extreme heat, extreme weather events, and others. And whereas the city of Brantford needs to adapt for the impacts of climate change by developing climate risk assessments and climate adaptation plans, which are critical for the safeguarding infrastructure, protecting essential services, and ensuring the well-being of all residents. And whereas having a well-defined climate adaptation plan will outline targeted action to reduce the impacts of climate challenges, protect infrastructure like water management systems, energy grids, and enhance public health. And whereas a climate adaptation plan is expected to assess methods to provide stormwater relief for flooding that is caused by extreme weather events. And whereas staff were directed to develop a climate adaptation plan as part of the Corporate Climate Change Action Plan approved in November 2020 in Report 2020-472. And whereas cities all across Ontario and Canada are developing climate adaptation plans to address climate hazards and protect the people, poverty, and prosperity of their communities. And whereas FCM will provide a grant of 60% of the project cost up to a maximum of $105,000 for Local Leadership for Climate Adaptation Initiative. And this project will be added to the city's 2025 capital budget. And whereas having a climate adaptation plan will enable the city of Brantford to be eligible for funding opportunities through FCM to implement climate adaptation infrastructure such as for flood mitigation and reducing urban heat island. And whereas staff are required to forward a resolution of Brantford City Council support towards this initiative to FCM as part of the application process. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to apply for a funding opportunity for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Local Leadership for Climate Adaptation Initiative for the City of Brantford Climate Risk Assessment and Adaptation Plan.
Thank you, Councilor. You have the first speaking opportunity as the mover.
Well, like I said, this was Councilor Martin's, and I don't want to steal any of his thunder.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question.
Item 8.2 carries on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those councillors voting in favor, Councillors Van Kilgore, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, McCurry, Caputa, Sullivan, Spelling, Mayor Davis, noting Councillor Celeste was out of the room at the time of the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councilor Scully, please read the motion to place all separated items consideration consent not previously voted on the floor and state your seconder, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sullivan, that all items for consideration and consent separated for discussion purposes be approved.
Okay, we'll move forward with 7.2.1, which is the Community Physician Recruitment Program 2024 Action Plan. Any discussion? Councilor Scully.
Yes, thank you. First and foremost, I don't think we can move forward in this without giving many thanks and gratitude to the Physician Recruitment Task Force. And I know under the leadership of Sandra, and I do want to commend you for your passion. I see you everywhere talking about this topic, and your passion definitely shows through, and I want to thank you for your advocacy within the community. I think there's some pretty great numbers in this report. The report says we've recruited 16 doctors in 2024, and I think that's a huge number especially compared to what we've seen. So those are some amazing numbers. I'm really proud about that. And, you know, there are some concerning numbers in here, and there's one that's really scary. One statistic, and it says in the next 1 year period, 14 to 16 new family doctors will be needed in our community. And those are really scary numbers. And so I think this action plan moving forward and creating this action plan is, there's some urgency to it. It's extremely important. And I know I personally have a vision for the future of Brantford's physician recruitment. I hope that it's something that I personally hope that it's something that stays in-house and maybe with our economic development team. I think we need to invest in our recruiters. We need to be selling Brantford. We need to be selling our culture, our trails, our entertainment, our school systems. I think we need to be providing services like assisting with housing and relocation. We need to be providing services for job searching for physicians' spouses, because they're coming too. And things like new medical buildings and new hospitals, those go a long way in recruiting physicians. Everybody wants to work somewhere that's shiny and new with the newest technology. And I think we need to keep doing the big things here in Brantford, like bringing in Costco's and sports entertainment centers. Those things make Brantford more sellable to physicians when they're interviewing different communities. And we need to be offering incentives, and the physician recruitment task force was handcuffed financially. They just didn't have the means to do a lot of what other communities are doing. So it's something that we really do need to look at. I know we're between CEOs right now, and that's a shame, because I would really like to know and chat with our incoming CEO, Mr. Bradley, who will be at the helm of this. So I do have one question of staff. This report here recommends that, or it states that in our upcoming budget that we're about to go in, there's $110,000 allocated. But we heard today from the physician recruitment task force that 145,000 would be needed for them to perform what they need to do for the next year before disbanding. Is that direction that you need from us now to discuss that, or is that something we would discuss at budget time?
So through the chair, Aaron Wallace, Director of Strategic Initiatives. So committee can certainly provide that direction now. We did note in the report that additional 35,000 is available within the Community Reserves Fund. So that direction could come to us now. We'll incorporate that into the deliberations that are forthcoming, or that could happen at estimates committee, whatever this committee decides.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to bring something forward, but come back to me, let others speak. Thank you.
Perfect timing, Councilor Sicoli. Councilor McCready, you're next, and then Councilor Sullivan.
Thank you, Chair. And a remarkably efficient job you are conducting tonight in that chair. May I say, Mr. Chair? Again, thanks to the delegation for coming tonight. An old friend of mine once said the secret to filling in a hole is firstly to quit digging, right? And no matter how we try to fill in that hole, we still end up with a deficit from doctors retiring and moving away, and it's just so hard. And Councilor Sicoli and I have sat back to back in the position of counselor on the physician recruitment committee, and it's quite illuminating to see what we can and cannot do given the resources and talent that we have now. City of Brantford has operated at arm's length for a long time, and the committee used to come and we'd grill them about how they spent their money. And I, for one, think that there's how do you put a price on people's health, and how do you put a price on people's access to primary care? And the consequences of not having primary care means you spend 12 hours in the ER while people are in there getting treated with runny nose and cuts, and it's a no-win situation for us as it stands now. And I'm pleased to see that we're about to embark as a municipality to take more of a hands-on role in conjunction with the members of this committee who provide the expertise. We can perhaps provide more in the way of resource, not only cash, but inducements. As Councilor Sicoli said, we really do need to step up our game. You can't attract doctors to this community by giving them little tape measures as inducements. You really need to do considerably better than that. I suspect Councillor Sicoli is about to introduce an amendment to give you more money, and I'm wholeheartedly in support of that. We've got more work to do as a municipal council to make sure that we play a role. More and more things end up on our plates, and I think we're happy to do it. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Councilor Sullivan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not exactly sure if this question can be actually answered today, but I wonder if there's a statistic out there that shows how many people who do have family doctors go to the walk-in clinics. And a better question is, how many of those people realize that every time they go to a walk-in clinic, their family doctor is getting the bill for it? So if we had those numbers, there's no doubt that people are able to access those doctors are able to get those numbers. And that could be something else too that's preventing doctors from wanting to come here. So next time you're ill, think about going to your family doctor as opposed to going to a walk-in clinic. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Sullivan. I have no other speakers, Councilor Sicoli, so I'm going to let you put your amendment on the floor, and then we'll speak to it after we deal with the amendment.
Sure thing. I have an amendment and seeking a seconder that we add item B, that the amount of $145,000 be allotted to physician recruitment in the 2025 year budget.
I think your secretary is Councilor McCurry, said it earlier.
Councillor McCurry. And just to speak to this, I know that Councillor McCurry actually brought something forward. I believe it was last year where this specific dollar amount was laid out, but at that time, we weren't quite sure what the future of physician recruitment was, and it was something that we were looking at jointly with the county. So we sort of put a pin in that dollar amount. But these numbers are scary, and even though the physician recruitment task force will be disbanding, I don't think we should be taking our foot off the gas. I think we should be moving forward aggressively in the physician recruitment, especially with family physicians. So I would like to see them moving forward and their coffers, loaded up while they're doing this, while we look at what the plan for the future is. So that's why I've decided to bring this forward this evening, and I hope we can count on your support.
Thank you, Councilor Sicoli. So moving to second, speakers to the amendment. Being none, I'm going to call the question on the amendment.
The amendment carries on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those councillors voting in favor, Councillors Winkelver, Samuel Hunt, Carpenter McCurry, Kibuto, Solomon Sicoli, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you. Is there any further speakers to the motion as amended? Councilor McCurry, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to remind the delegation that we'll also be dealing with the other matter shortly, so don't leave.
Okay, no further speakers. I just would like to add my 2 cents worth in there that I too sat on the physician recruitment committee some time ago. I know the value there. I know, and I sit on the committee, the community health hub with my good friend, Dr. Elliott there, and we're doing, that's a really good thing that we're doing our community health hub, Brantford, Norfolk. And we're trying to build a community hospital, same play. We want the province to fund our hospital. They've already agreed to everything else. We want the funding. And we've launched our own hospital campaign to make sure that happens as well. So, okay. Seeing that, we've called the vote as amended.
Item 722 carries on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those councillors voting in favor, Councillors Winkelver, Samuel Hunt, Carpenter McCurry, Kibuto, Solomon Sicoli, and Mayor Davis.
Next item on the list is 7.16, city operated medical clinic project capital, and I have Councilor Sicoli. I have you separating that as speaker.
Yes, thank you. I'll summarize the report for the individuals who did not read it, but essentially we had staff look into a city operated medical clinic, and the report has come back that staff recommend that we do not proceed with that. So now I'll go into my thoughts. And during our delegation at AMO with the Minister of Health, and I was there with Councillor Hunt, Councillor Samwell, Mayor Davis, you know, a portion of that conversation was pertaining to staff recruitment and how much easier it is to recruit when you have a new facility with up-to-date and state-of-the-art technology and equipment. So I do believe in building a medical clinic. I do believe that there's opportunity for community sponsorship to offset that cost. I do believe in the city of Brantford. I do believe that we need to take control of this situation and curate our own future and what that looks like. I do believe there is a role for the city to play in designing a medical family physician team and playing a matchmaker in that regard to the best of our ability. The report from item 7.2.1 that we just discussed shows us some very scary numbers. And I find it hard to commit to this or to talk about this without knowing the future or the direction of our physician recruitment and what that looks like. And I find it personally almost impossible to look at each of these items from their individual silos, like we're forced to do when they're two different agenda items. I do think they should be looked at together. Mr. Chair, I do offer a referral, but I think that there might be some other people who want to speak to
I'll
this
come back to
item,
you
and I
first.
don't want to stop that. Okay.
I'll come back to you, Councillor
Thank you.
Foley. Thank you. Councillor McCurry, I think I had you on the list.
Chair, thank you very much. It was Councillor Martin and I that brought this initially, and as I said earlier, it arose during a discussion at the Physician Recruitment Committee going back these many months. And I want to thank staff for the fulsome nature of the report before us today and for the recommendations. I can't put a price on health, but there's only so much folks can afford to pay in taxes too. And we need to balance the things that we can do in this community to really fill in some of the gaps that we see with respect to provincial and federal funding and their unending desire to offload things on other partners. And generally that tends to be us. So we do have a role to play in the healthcare continuum, and I think we need to proceed with that. Councillor Sicoli has an amendment she's going to bring this evening with respect to referring to staff to carry out some additional work and investigations. But as I said earlier, there is a role for us to play here, a greater role perhaps in determining outcomes of the service continuum with respect to healthcare in this community. We do see models elsewhere referred to in the report. There's a model in the city of Kingston, which offers a cash incentive to doctors to locate there. We see what's happened in County of Brant, where they have a certain model with respect to their new clinic, which was paid for largely by donation and by naming rights. And if I recall, you can't turn around in there without seeing the name of a company on a wall sponsoring everything from light switches to medical center components. And I think we'll see that in the amendment as well this evening. So I'm quite happy to have this in hand. We're going to build on what the original resolution looked at, which was municipal involvement in bricks and mortar. And as we go on and continue the investigation, that may turn into something more akin to signing the fronts of checks as inducements, and perhaps the provision of other inducements, even though the little tape measure certainly was a step in the right direction, which we can build on. So thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a good evening for us, and this is but the start point in a continuing dialogue about the involvement of the city of Brantford in providing doctor recruitment.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Any further speakers before we go to referral? Seeing none, Councilor Foley, move your referral or deferral?
I'll speak first and then I'll offer a referral, which should be in here somewhere already worded for me. So physician recruitment is the #1 priority in we hear this over and over and over. People need family doctors, and I do think that this medical center could be and just another tool in our toolbox while we're going through the process. I would hate to see us say no to this today and then procedurally we can't cycle back to it. So, you know, I think if we look at this through a different lens, through the physician recruitment lens, it might look a little different. But I do think that we should be keeping this alive for the time being, just to make sure that we're not cutting ourselves off from this opportunity. So I would like to offer a referral. I would like to refer this back to staff to have them review it as part of the physician recruitment action plan as outlined in item 7.2.1.
And time and place?
It's just referred back to staff. So what the timeline that's referred to in item 7.2.1 would now be the timeline for this referral. Is that procedurally correct? Okay, thank you. Seeking do I need a second approval?
Secretary
Councilor
Councilor McCurry, yes. Yes. Okay. Comments or questions on timeline? Okay, none. I'll call the question.
The referral of item 716 carries on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those councillors voting in favor, councillors Mecklenburg, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, McCurry, Caputo, Solomon, Scully, and Mayor Davis.
That brings us to 7.22. Mr. Mayor, you have the floor.
Yeah, Chair, if I can have the wording of that resolution. Because there's a waiver.
What are you looking for? The up on the resolution on the tape, up on the screen, please. Because the mayor's gonna move a waiver to bring it forward tonight.
Thank you. So I'm moving, seeking a seconder that section 15.11.5 of the City of Brantford Municipal Code be waived in order to introduce the following resolution without any prior notice of motion. And this is the resolution, the body of the resolution that I'm asking for notice to be waived on. Whereas the City of Brantford adjusted the municipal boundary in 2017, adding 2,700 gross hectares of land, including lands from Powerline Road to Governor's Road East, to accommodate significant residential employment growth. And whereas the City of Brantford official plan identifies King George Road north of Powerline Road as an intensification corridor, bisecting two residential block plans known as Powerline Central and Powerline West block plan areas. And whereas King George Road north of Powerline Road is under provincial jurisdiction and is referred to as King's Highway number 24, managed and maintained by the Ontario Ministry of Transportation. And whereas the City of Brantford currently owns and maintains a portion of King George Road south of Powerline Road through a Ministry of Transportation administered program called the Connecting Links Program for critical roadways that serve both municipal and provincial interests. And whereas the City of Brantford is working with the development community to achieve the city's housing target to build 10,000 new homes by 2031 to support the province's goal to build 1.5 million homes in the same period. And whereas the development of lands within the Powerline Central and Powerline West block plan areas adjacent to the Kings Highway 24 corridor will result in approximately 15,000 new homes. And whereas the Kings Highway 24 corridor being owned by the Ministry of Transportation is a constraint for future development due to provincial policies related to setbacks, access, placement, utilities, and stormwater management, and will prevent the full urbanization of this corridor. And whereas the location of a planned new east-west major collector road traversing Kings Highway 24, identified in the city's official plan and transportation master plan, cannot meet the provincial guidelines for access spacing on a provincial highway under the current ownership requirements. And whereas the relocation of the planned east-west major collector corridor would be significantly impeded or imperiled by natural heritage system constraints and rolling topography. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation City of Brantford request the Ministry of Transportation download King George Road north of Powerline Road to Governor's Road East to the City of Brantford, having full jurisdiction of this roadway, or as an alternative, that the Council of the Corporation City of Brantford request and endorse an extension to the Ministry of Transportation Connecting Links Program to transfer the remaining portion of Kings Highway 24 within the city limits into the city's jurisdiction. And that senior staff of the Ministry of Transportation be requested to work in unison with city staff on an interim highway access management plan until such time as transfer of ownership can occur to expedite development and servicing of the affected lands. Get down there. And D, that the clerk be directed to forward a copy of this resolution of the Honorable Will Bowman, MPP for Brantford Brant, and the Honorable Parvit Singh Sarkaria, Ontario Minister of Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your seconder is Councillor Caputo. Questions on waiving the rules? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question on waiving the rules.
The motion to waive the rules for item 9.1 carries on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those councillors voting in favor, Councillors Van Kilgore, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, McCurry, Caputo, Sullivan, Sicoli, and Mayor Davis.
Mr. Mayor, you have the floor. No need to read the resolution again. You've already
Well, I'm
read it.
definitely not going to read
Have
that
the floor.
resolution. I think you got the gist of it. So essentially, in simple terms, what it is this. You know that we took in from the county the lands north of Power Line Road, which we call the boundary lands. And right in the middle of all of that is highway number 24, which is King George Road here in the city of Brantford. And so right now, between Power Line Road and Governor's Road, it's considered a provincial highway. And there are rules that apply to that make it very difficult to be able to plan for roads crossing Highway 24 or for there to be access to Highway 24. Because the province, when they have a King's Highway, as they call it, they limit the number of intersections and they limit the number of access and exit points from King's Highway. And they do that for obvious reasons, as to make it safer for moving traffic. But with the plans that we have for the boundary lands, they will become an urban area with urban development. And we're going to need Highway 24 to be treated just the same as King George Road is south of Power Line Road. And so this is confirms an AMO delegation request that we made this summer at the Association of Municipalities Conference in Ottawa. And that is a request to the Ministry of Transportation that they transfer jurisdiction over that part of Highway 24 to the city of Brantford, just like King George Road was done many decades ago between Power Line and the 403. So the intent behind this and the reason for the urgency is that we're into some critical negotiations and advocacy with the provincial government. It will boost and strengthen our advocacy and lobbying position to have council support this request.
Thank you,
That's
Mr. Mayor.
the reason for bringing it forward tonight.
Thank you very much. And I have Councillor Hunt, Councillor Scully in that order. Councillor Hunt, you have the floor.
Thank you. And through you, I'm not sure if there's staff available to answer. So as the mayor mentioned, we did make a delegation to the Minister of Transportation at AMO, Councillor Samwell, Councillor Sicoli, myself, and the mayor. And what my question is have we had any correspondence or response to that delegation since then?
I don't think we have any staff here that can answer that question at this time. And when we get back to the mayor's second opportunity, he'll respond to it.
Okay, I see Indy has come
Oh,
on.
is Indy's on? Oh, we do have somebody. Mr. Hands, could you respond to that question?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Hunt. Yes, we did meet with the ministry staff afterwards. It's only been about 2 or 3 weeks since we did meet with them, myself, Nicole, and their staff, including those staff that actually review our EAs and have the capability of actually making some change. What they had requested was this resolution be sent to them, as they would use this to prepare some letters to their ministers as well to try to push this forward. But they said that during that AMO conference, this was the hot topic, and they were really excited to try to move this forward.
Okay, that's great to know, and I'm glad to hear that we've had some movement from a staff discussion perspective. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councilor Scully.
Yeah, I would have loved to have had notice that we were chatting about this tonight. But I'll do my best on the fly. I know that this is quite a critical, piece of roadway that we need to get our hands on, and having attended that AMO delegation, I am armed with some background information on this. But I know that it is critical to have this, control of this section of roadway. And it's crucial to the block plan and the planning that we're having, go on up there. And I do believe there's like an arterial road that will intersect through King George Road, and in order for us to, make that as safe as possible, it's just easier for us at the city level, to have some, I hate saying the word control, to be able to curate what that's going to look like and design it so that it's safe from all directions. So I will be supporting it, even though I typically don't support waiving the rules on the fly. But knowing how important this is, and fully supporting it already, I will definitely be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Scully. Councilor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm very pleased to see this on the agenda tonight. I'm glad we waived the rules, and I'm glad that Mayor Davis has brought this forward tonight. Just to reiterate what my council members have said, the importance of this road and how it can cripple movement going forward if we're in the processes of doing something from the block plan. And at the same time, it's certainly a part of what we believe is going to be the new part of Brantford. So that whole north part, from residential to the new employment lands, is certainly going to add a new dimension to the city, and having this part of the road is certainly critical. And I hope that we kind of lead it off with having a roundabout at the corner of Power Line and King George Road. Wouldn't that be great to move traffic in and out? So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this forward, and I certainly will be supporting this.
Thank you, Councilor Caputo. The new Brantford North. Councilor McCurry.
Chair, thank you very much, and I will be fully supportive of this today. And I want to thank the mayor for his forward-thinking consideration of incorporating this as a municipal road. It allows us to do things as simple as adding a turn lane from Power Line southbound onto King George Road, which previously we've been prohibited from doing because it's their road and not ours. And I would point out to the prior speaker, I won't mention him by name because that would just encourage him to speak again. But part of our Power Line Road, E8, involves the installation of roundabouts at most of the major intersections. So those who are roundabout fans can only stand by for such good news.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Seeing no further speakers, I'm going to call the question.
Item 9.1 carries on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those councillors voting in favor, councillors Wentworth, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, McCurry, Caputo, Sullivan, Scully, Mayor Davis.
And my apologies, Mayor Davis, we did skip over one that you asked to be separated, that we did separate, and that's 7.22 Downtown Brantford Priority Plan. Oh, was it Mandy? Councilor Samuel. Thank you. So you have the floor, Councilor Samuel.
Thank you. Really what I wanted to speak to you about that is I just really wanted to thank staff for an excellent report. And I wanted to thank all of the community partners that are involved in the downtown priority plan. There's been so much that's been accomplished. And I just wanted to point out that it's some of the things that people think about when it comes down to downtown improvement, but it's also the little things. So some of the things I wanted to highlight are, of course, the special constables, the waste depot, the peace mural, the downtown resource map, and the library youth area. There's some of the things that you wouldn't ordinarily think about when you're talking about improving the downtown, but it's all the little things that come together. And we actually had the opportunity to walk around and visit some of the locations and hear more about the different projects last week. And I was thrilled to see some of the work that's going on. So I just wanted to thank staff again and the partners. Thank you.
Mayor Davis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just by way of background, this was a task force that was struck by the prior council. It was about 19, it was right towards the end of the pandemic when we realized the the situation downtown had deteriorated rather significantly through the pandemic. And we realized that the downtown would need a jumpstart coming out of the pandemic. And so we struck this committee. There were representatives from Brantford Police Services, the library, the BIA, Laurier, Conestoga, the health unit, Chamber of Commerce. And it came up with a number of recommendations focusing on three areas: increasing safety and security downtown, two, increasing the number of events downtown to make the downtown more livable, and also trying to make the downtown more inclusive and with more growth. And out of that came a number of initiatives. And the way we approached it was, this is not a one and done thing. It isn't done the report, say we did all these things, and then you put it in a shelf and forget about it. We agreed that this would be a 5-year plan, and that every year we would review what had been accomplished, what still needed to be done, and what needed to be done over the next year or two. And we all know the downtown has improved in some respects, and in other respects it hasn't. And there's a need to continue to focus on the downtown, to fine tune what it is we're doing downtown. And for example, Councillor Samwell, part of the process was having a downtown ambassador, and Councillor Samwell is our downtown ambassador, and doing a great job, I may say, meeting with residents downtown and businesses. But I'm hoping our staff, and we have three, Mr. Chair, Mr. Wallace, who is overseeing this. Aaron, I'm wondering if you might have a couple of power slides that would summarize what we've done so far and what we hope to do over the next year or two.
Through the chair.
A presentation through the back door, I might say, Mr. Chair.
So through the chair, the mayor and Councillor Sam have done an excellent job of summarizing most of this already, so I can go pretty quickly. So we can go to the next slide. As the mayor said, the kind of origin story of this work is that downtown task force that resulted in the downtown Brantford priority plan, and the mayor's talked about the three categories that work gets organized into. I'll just go to the next slide. Just pause on this slide as an illustration of a couple of things. And one is what the committee's already referenced, which is the wonderful work of the community stakeholders. Obviously, the city is a primary stakeholder in this in terms of infrastructure and social services and all those things this committee well knows. But many of those things listed, as already mentioned by committee, are work of the partners and work in collaboration with each other and with the city. So things like international film series or downtown resource maps, as mentioned already, can be seen as small project, but in a collage of a collective effort by the community. Also pause on this just to reinforce the thanks to the community partners. This was not a go alone strategy by the city. This is a way to bring community partners and stakeholders together to reaffirm some of the great work that's already happening downtown, the revitalization project, the Sanderson Center, Harmony Square, those types of things, but also to be a catalyst for new initiatives, many of which you see listed there. And the report in front of you does take those 18 priorities, break them apart, and then organize this work within those priorities. You can see both category-wise and based on priority by priority, the work that's happening. So let's jump ahead to the next slide if we don't mind. So even this slide where I pulled out a few highlights that have already been mentioned, some of them still looks pretty busy, but you can see within those categories, lots of very determined and thoughtful work happening, and not just by the city, but by our partners as well. So some of this has been mentioned, special constables, encampment outreach team, obviously the approval to proceed to the design of a sport and entertainment center. All of these things collectively are going to have a significant impact. Lots of vibrancy projects. You see almost too many to list in terms of murals and fusion beats and the kinds of events and activities that really drive the vibrancy and are inclusive in the downtown. Let's get to the next slide. In terms of what comes next. So some of this plan is a snowball plan. So many of the things listed in that collage continue, and we'll build on them as we go. There's also new work coming in the next couple of years. One is council will consider the design of the sport and entertainment complex. But we'll also see a lot more exploration of those art and mural projects. We'll also see a revitalization of the Lauren Bridge, some work done on Brant's Crossing. So you'll see lots of visual effects as well. And probably besides the sport and entertainment complex, the biggest one to think about is the downtown revitalization project moving into a design phase. So you'll see some of that work that's been talked about and lots of kind of under the surface of the water preparatory work happening in terms of downtown infrastructure. Start to see some of those designs come forward to council. I think I'll move ahead to this slide, and I'll just pause on this thought is building the suspense. One last slide. So we're starting to see some really interesting artist renderings of what the downtown is going to look like. And the downtown is going to be pretty awesome. So you can see some of the developments that have been approved, some of the work that's being done both by developers and planning and by community partners, getting a sense of what that downtown is going to look like over the next 5, 10, 15 years, however long it takes to bring some of these things online. We do know that, downtowns, like any neighborhood, are going to have their good days and their bad days. We're going to have great ideas and ideas that don't work out. We're going to keep pushing towards this vision of this idea of a downtown. It's a very vibrant place, a place people want to go. There's lots to do. And of course, besides all that, providing the support and the resources to folks that may be living downtown or experiencing downtown in a different way and making sure they have the resources they need. So I think that was a recap of mostly what committee already said, but I'll pause there for any questions.
Thank you. Sorry, we've used this, both the mayor's first and second speaking opportunity in there. So if anyone else would like to speak to this, having seen none, call the question. The downtown we've all been waiting for.
Item 722 carries on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those councillors voting in favor, councillors Bentleberg, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, McCurry, Caputa, Sullivan, Scully, Mayor Davis.
Mr. Clerk, are you saying we didn't vote on 7.21? We did. We're good. I thought so. Okay. The last thing is 8.1, not the last but not least, Councilor Sullivan on 8.1, your resolution, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, you did do a great job tonight. All right, as soon as it comes up on the screen here, I'll start. There we go. All right, requesting the redistribution of provincial land transfer tax and GST to municipalities for sustainable infrastructure funding. This is moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brian Van Tilborg. Whereas municipalities face growing infrastructure needs, including roads, bridges, public transit, water systems, and other critical services, which are essential to community well-being and economic development. And whereas the current source of municipal revenue, including property taxes and user fees, are insufficient to meet these increasing demands for infrastructure investment. And whereas the province of Ontario currently collects the land transfer tax on property transactions in municipalities across the province, generating significant revenue that is not directly shared with municipalities. And whereas the federal government collects the goods and services tax, the GST, on property transactions, a portion of which could be directed to municipalities to address local infrastructure needs. And whereas redistributing a portion of the provincial land transfer tax and GST to municipalities would provide a predictable and sustainable source of funding for local infrastructure projects without creating a new tax burden on residents or home buyers. And whereas a redistribution of a portion of the existing land transfer tax and GST would allow municipalities to better plan and invest in long-term infrastructure initiatives, supporting local economic growth and improving the quality of life for residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved, A, that Brantford City Council formally requests the provincial government to consider redistributing a portion of the land transfer tax collected on property transactions to municipalities, and that Brantford City Council calls on the federal government to allocate a percentage of the GST collected on property sales to municipalities, and that planning and investment in infrastructure projects that benefit local communities, thus ensuring the local governments receive a fair share of the revenue to address critical infrastructure needs. That copies of this resolution be forwarded to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Premier Doug Ford, the Ontario Minister of Finance, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, MP Larry Brock, and MPP Will Boma, and that copies of this resolution be forwarded to all 444 municipalities in Ontario, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario for their endorsement and advocacy. And may I speak to this?
Yes, you may.
As we know, we've all taken a bit of a hit here with DC charges with the changes with Bill 23. And we were already on a shortcoming as it was when it come to our infrastructure with revenues to put forth towards it. So losing these additional funds that was happened through Bill 23 has just hit us even more. So I think this is an opportunity where these two levels of government can chip in and help the municipalities get back to where they need to be while they're trying to push their agendas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sullivan. Further speakers? And your seconder was, you named your seconder, Councilman Tilbury. Saying no speakers, I'll call the question.
Item 8.1 carries on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those councilors voting in favor, Councilors Wentworth, Stanmore, Hunt, Carpenter, McCurry, Caputo, Sullivan, Sapelli, and Mayor Davis.
And the only other thing to add is that notice of motion deadline for council agenda is Thursday, November 21st, 9 a.m. We are adjourned. Thank you, members of council.